I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Operation Freedom Briefings and happy holidays. The goal of these briefings and my weekly radio show, Operation Freedom, is to provide you information the bought-off, lamestream, fake media is not going to present and is not going to touch. You can join us at davejanda.com. We're there 24/7. We have a public side, a free side. We also have the subscription side, 30 cents a day. I believe one of the biggest bangs for the buck in all of the internet. We also have our radio show that you can stream live every Sunday, 2 to 5 Eastern. Go to davejanda.com, hit the upper right-hand corner, and hit the Listen Live button. Great analysis, great guests. We're there every Sunday, 2 to 5. Today I'd like to focus on what's happening financially. There's a war between Donald Trump and the globalist terrorists represented by the Federal Reserve. Look, a little background and foundation. You probably know this, but I bet you your neighbors don't, and the vast majority of your family doesn't. The Federal Reserve is not a part of the executive, legislative, or judicial branches of the United States government. It's an independent entity. It's great marketing. Federal Reserve, like Federal Express, not associated with the federal government. The Federal Reserve is a group of independent bankers that are only looking out for the interests of banksters, not the American public, not our country. A great book, one of our guests on Operation Freedom on the davejanda.com platform, on our subscription platform, is G. Edward Griffin. He wrote a fantastic book, mandatory reading, The Creature from Jekyll Island. It talks about the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913 and how the money supply, the creation of the money supply was handed over to the globalist syndicate, the Rothschild-Rockefeller axis. These are the sinister players that have destroyed our country, that have created bubble after bubble, that have created financial ruin around our country, wreaked havoc and chaos. To us, that's horrible. To them, it's just another day at the office, because out of this chaos, they always get more power, more control, and more financial resources. Trump is in a death match with the globalists, and in particular the Federal Reserve. Let me give you an example. Trump, in my lifetime, is probably the president who has publicly gone after the Federal Reserve like no other president, again, in my lifetime. Reagan pointed the finger at the Fed. Kennedy pointed the finger at the Fed. Trump is in daily warfare with the Fed. Go back to October 10th. This is when he really went cosmic with it, if you will, really went overt with it. Trump blames Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Quote, I think the Fed has gone crazy, end quote. October 15th, 2018. Quote, my biggest threat is the Fed, end quote. Trump citing aggressive rate hikes. October 23rd, 2018. Trump escalates his attack on Powell. Quote, every time we do something great, he raises interest rates. November 23rd. It's interesting, on that day, the Federal Reserve issued a cautionary note about risk to financial stability, saying trade tensions, geopolitical uncertainty, and a buildup in corporate debt among firms with weak balance sheets pose strong threats. And then on November 27th, President Trump has come out and said, the Federal Reserve is a much bigger problem than China. End quote. Now look, up until that point, he was talking about how horrible China is, how they steal from us, they rip us off. And now he tells the American public the Fed is worse than China. President Trump has been tweeting about Powell, the chairman, about the Federal Reserve, about how they're trying to ruin the economy, bring down the stock market. In fact, Trump has known from the very beginning, I believe, that the financial system was based on vapor. Look at when President Trump ran for office. He was talking about how the jobs numbers are fraudulent, the government data is fraudulent, the stock market is a huge bubble being supported by the globalists pumping money into it, creating this Ponzi scheme. He knew our country was in debt to the tune of $21 trillion when he was elected. But remember that meeting in the Oval Office with Obama. Prior to that, there was some other meeting that occurred, the players of which were never mentioned in public. I believe it was at that meeting with Obama, Trump, and whoever these other players were, mainly financial. I believe President Trump was told not only about the $21 trillion in debt, which he was aware of, and I believe he had a plan. I believe he had a plan coming in and said, well, we can grow out of this, we can possibly default part here, and we can devalue the dollar a bit, and we can kind of grow our way out of it. But at that meeting, I believe he was confronted with another set of facts. We've outlined on our show, and Greg Hunter has with his on USA Watchdog, through Dr. Mark Skidmore and Catherine Austin Fitz, that in addition, between 1998 and 2015, there's $21 trillion that's unaccounted for just in the Department of Defense and Housing and Urban Development. So we were $21 trillion in debt, and all of a sudden Trump is confronted with at least another $21 trillion that's missing, and probably tens of trillions beyond that we're just not aware of. And I believe he realized, this is not something we can grow out of. This is not something we can depreciate the dollar out of. Donald Trump, remember, is adept at dealing with bankruptcy situations, which is one of the reasons why I believe he's there. And I believe he said, okay, I have to take ownership of the stock market. I have to use their own tools to blow this thing up higher so that when it falls, it doesn't fall quite as far. And I have to buy some time so I can deal with our creditors, China and the like, and I can deal with our creditors and try to make it so that when the system unravels, that millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people are not going to be devastated. Yes, there's going to be some tough times, but I have to make it so they're not devastated. And I believe that's what President Trump has been doing the first 2 years. I believe he's been negotiating about our debt. I believe he's been trying to shore up the system so that when it does come down, that millions, tens, hundreds of millions of people are not, as I said, ruined. But he's also, and he started on this in October, as I mentioned to you in his quotes, he's been pointing the finger at the people that were responsible for this, and that is the Fed. And the Fed is trying to point the finger at him, saying, oh, it's all Trump's doing. And Trump is saying, folks, look, it's the Federal Reserve. It's this group of private, independent bankers that's been screwing you and your relatives and our country for at least 105 years. They are the ones to blame. And then it came out that this weekend, Trump is considering firing the Fed chairman, Powell. Well, that might be a bit of theater, because then again, it points the finger at the Fed as being the problem. Now, all these pundits in the bought-off lamestream fake media are saying, oh, that's never happened before, this trash talk. Really? I want to take it back to something that Ron Paul brought up when President Lyndon Johnson was in power. He summoned then Fed Chairman William McChesney Martin to President Johnson's ranch in the Hill Country outside of Austin. Johnson, at that meeting, shoved the Fed chairman against the wall. He physically assaulted, this is Ron Paul, physically assaulting the Fed chairman is probably a greater threat to the Federal Reserve independence than questioning the Fed's policies on Twitter. So when folks say no one's ever treated a Fed chairman, really? Come on. But Trump is doing it in public, not private. And that's the key. And then this article came out on Zero Hedge from this weekend, authored by Michael Schneider. Is the Fed actually trying to cause a stock market crash? Quote, all the economic numbers tell us that the economy is slowing down, and Fed Chair Jerome Powell even admitted that the economic conditions are softening. But the Federal Reserve raised interest rates anyway just this past week. As one top economist put it, raising rates as we head into an economic downturn is, quote, economic malpractice, end quote. They know that higher rates will slow down the economy even more, but it isn't as if the Fed was divided on this move. In fact, it was a unanimous vote to raise rates. They clearly have an agenda, and that agenda is definitely not about helping the American people. Look, bottom line, the stock market, the financial markets have been constructed, if you will, by the globalists over time to come down. And what Trump has done for the past 2 years is bought time to try to shore up the underlying instability in the system so that millions of Americans are not devastated by this. When it does crash, and it will crash, and we've seen the stock market come down from 26,000 down to 22,000 and possibly, undoubtedly lower. President Trump has set the table so that the American public knows who's to blame. And that's the globalists and their tentacle, the Federal Reserve. I believe his ultimate goal is when the crash occurs and a reset occurs, part of that reset is going to be a neutering of the Federal Reserve and the globalists. Donald Trump is in the process of trying to make lemonade out of lemons. He was handed a system that was destined to collapse. He is in the process of trying to shore up what he can so that when it does collapse, the collapse is muted. And also, when the collapse occurs, the appropriate people who are responsible for this can be blamed. It's not about trade negotiations with China. It's all about the globalist construct of the financial system and the debt-ridden core of it. We discuss in great depth this past Sunday on our Operation Freedom show with Bill Holter. And I am going to have that link in the notes section here so you have access to that link so you can hear that interview. Normally it's protected under password on our podcast, but that interview I'm going to open up for you so you can get a hint of what we do on our show and what we do on our platform, on our subscription platform with DaveJanda.com. We have our WTF geopolitical analysis show. We have our Insider Insight show with insider insights and interviews with people that you're never going to see in the bought-off lamestream fake media. We have a Department of Advanced Research show. Our subscribers have access to the podcast, not just from last week, but from every week back to the inception of Operation Freedom of October of 2010. I'd like to thank you for your time today. I'd like to thank you for joining me. I hope you will join us on the free side at DaveJanda.com, and also $9 a month. You can sign up for a month and get rid of it if you don't like it, but the information you get, you're not going to get from other sources. Hope you'll try that as well. And again, I thank you for joining us here on our platform on YouTube. As we sign off every segment, this is Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thank you for your time today.
Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the Wtdta Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1777B, and today's date is January 28th, 2019, and the title of the episode is Panic, Deep State Trolls Trump, Think Mirror, We're Getting Closer. Now, before we get started, I wanted to talk about getting prepared and being self-reliant. We've seen what the deep state is capable of. We've seen what the central bankers are capable of. And my main theme has always been to prepare for any situation. One of the best places I found to purchase survival supplies and emergency preparedness gear and food is My Patriot Supply. They understand the drive to practice emergency preparedness. Why? Because My Patriot Supply are active participants in the survivalist lifestyle. My Patriot Supply offers a vast array of survival items. Go to mypatriotsupply.com today and get prepared for any situation, because true freedom comes from attaining a certain level of self-reliance. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, they are panicking like we've never seen before. When the deep state starts to troll Donald Trump, you know that they're in a deep panic. And we're going to be talking about this in just a minute. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about the plan. And yesterday we talked about part of the plan was showing the mainstream media was running fake news, propaganda, and the Patriots, they are continually feeding fake information to show that the fake news is just that, fake news. And Trump is continually tweeting out, letting everyone know that it's fake news. He's waking the American people up, letting them know that the fake news media is the enemy of the people. It's not the journalists who investigate, tell the truth, look at all the facts. He's talking about the fake news that comes out of the intelligence organizations, that comes out of fake leaking, that comes out of certain individuals in the House or in the Senate. That's what he's talking about. And he tweeted out something very interesting today. In the media's effort to destroy the president, they are actually destroying themselves. Given all the tremendous headwinds this president has faced, it's amazing he has accomplished so much. D. Roy Murdoch at Fox and Friends, I agree. And you can see he's putting it out there that they are destroying themselves. What does Q always say? Why interfere with an enemy? Why they're destroying themselves. And that's exactly what is happening. Now, let's look at Stone, Roger Stone, and his indictment and what's really going on here. Stone was charged in a 7-count indictment handed down by Mueller's grand jury and related to the 2016 election attack. But after sifting through the 24-page document, it alleges no involvement by Stone or the Trump campaign in Russia's hacking. The indictment's focus instead is the WikiLeaks end of the enterprise. Not the cyber espionage of foreign power that gave rise to the investigation, but the dissemination of the stolen emails after the hacking. What were in those emails? They were the Clinton emails. So what have we learned from all this? That the Trump campaign did not know what WikiLeaks had. That is, in addition to being uninvolved in Russia's espionage, the Trump campaign was uninvolved in Julian Assange's acquisition of what Russia stole. Absent evidence of collusion, and since it appears that Trump campaign had no advanced knowledge of or participation in any efforts to illegally hack computers belonging to the Democrats, we are, once again, left with mere process crimes. And actually, Roger Stone just took what was out there in the public domain and, for a better word, advertised what was already out there to try to bring attention to it. So was there really Russian collusion? Did he download the WikiLeaks information? Did he hack into the computers? No, he did none of that. So we need to think to ourselves and think logically here for a second. One, they tipped off CNN, made them look like idiots, like they did some type of investigative reporting, and they allowed them to show footage of the FBI going into Roger Stone. Now, we know there was no reason for this. This is not normal, especially for what they arrested him for. Secondly, why would they do this if they know there's going to be a discovery process? And Nunes predicts that the discovery process in Roger Stone case will be fascinating. So that tells us something right there. And we need to go back to post 1595. And let me just read post 1595. This is June 26, 2018. Desperate agencies do stupid things. Dead cat bounce. You may have the site, but we have the source. Gave a link to WikiLeaks and says panic is good. Panic is right. July 2018, the month the world discovered the truth. Conspiracy no more. Time to feed. Q. Then we move to post 1842. And Q says, never interfere with an enemy while he's in the process of destroying himself. Discovery. And then gave us an article from The Hill. WikiLeaks says Senate panel requested Assange testimony in Russia probe. Do you believe in coincidences? We have the source. Q. Then we go to post 1515, June 16th, 2018. These reporters and networks have been named in the WikiLeaks to have colluded with the DNC or Hillary campaign during the 2016 election cycle. So why do you think Stone is there? Very interesting. It's all about WikiLeaks. It's all about discovery. It's all about getting more evidence. The deep state, they think they're winning. They think this was a big win. The mainstream media thinks this was a big win. Actually, the opposite is happening. Now, Hillary Clinton is reportedly weighing her third presidential bid. And what I find very interesting is that if we go back to post 2219, this is September 19, 2018, Q says the following. Watch those announcing 2020 presidential running. You cannot attack a political opponent. None are protected. None are safe. You can attack a political opponent. This is not going to keep them safe. These people believe it's going to, but it is not. Now, the senators, they're introducing a bill to require special counsel report to be made public. So a bipartisan pair of senators want to require the report from special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia probe, as well as from other Justice Department special counsels, is released publicly once the investigation ends. We have Chuck Grassley and Blumenthal, both members of the Judiciary Committees, introduced legislation on Monday that would require Department of Justice special counsel to hand over a report to Congress once either the probe ends or in the event special counsel is fired or resigns. Grassley added that requiring a public report would provide oversight of an insight into activities of special counsel probe. So we hear right now that Grassley wants this made. He wants the report made public. He went on to say, I was encouraged to hear Attorney General nominee William Barr place a high priority on transparency when asked at his confirmation hearing about special counsel Mueller's investigation, and there's no reason to think that Mueller won't be allowed to finish his work. So they're going to put out a public report. Now, of course, this is going to be an unclassified report. There's going to be redacted information, but they want the public to see everything, what he was up to. Now, we need to go back to post 2445, because in 2445, it says House Judiciary Chairman, House to Senate, and this is House with 3 arrows pointing to Senate, House to Senate, Trust Grassley, Senate Judiciary Chairman, brackets, bold, House of Cards, military planning at its finest. I believe what Grassley is going to do, he's going to show that Mueller went down every single avenue. A lot of it had nothing to do with Russian collusion and didn't find anything. So what happens with all those investigations in the House? Well, they just had a special counsel, which they hired, and he went down in every single direction trying to find something and found nothing. Actually, it's going to bring down the House. All these investigations, everything they're doing, boom, done. So we see that Nancy Pelosi, they are trying to push H.R. 1. But 150 conservative leaders nationwide released a memo to the movement. And they're saying, no way can this pass. This cannot go anywhere. Why? Because H.R. 1 would profoundly shift elections towards liberal candidates and open the door to rampant voter fraud. H.R. 1, outlining how it is designed to ensure that a liberal Democrat wins the White House in 2020 and the left gains unified control of Congress and as well as take over state governments. The Democrats' bill violates the First Amendment. It restricts political speech and election activities in several ways that the U.S. Supreme Court has made crystal clear violates the Constitution, such as groups pooling resources to take out ads on the issues those groups advocate. Pelosi's legislation is a massive federal power grab away from states. The Constitution gives primary authority to the sovereign states to conduct elections. This bill empowers the federal government to micromanage elections by requiring states to get pre-clearance from D.C. before changing their election procedures. H.R. 1 also mandates countless millions of taxpayer dollars to be given to candidates for their campaigns, requiring citizens to fund candidates who those citizens actually oppose for office. The memo highlights several other features of the bill. Forces all states to allow all convicted felons to vote. Requires all states to allow same-day voter registration, which leads to voter fraud. Makes it difficult for a state to discover if a voter is also voting in another state. Prevents states from limiting early voting. Prevents states from limiting voting by mail. Criminalizes political speech that the government deems discouraging to voters who are statistically more likely to vote Democrat. Takes redistricting away from the elected leaders to give to left-leaning commissions. Gee, what do you think they're trying to do with this H.R. 1 bill? They're trying to take back control. But think about this. The Senate was the key. We have a firewall in place. Guess what? This is never making it through the firewall. Post 2610. And Anon asks, will voter fraud be exposed before January? Q says no. 2019 push voter ID based on verifiable intel fraud. 2020 plus safeguarded. What are the Dems, the deep state, what are they trying to do? They think they have the House. They think they have the power. But what did Trump, Q, and the Patriots do? They set up a firewall. They can block everything. Everything that they try to do will go nowhere. This was the whole purpose of this. It wasn't to get the House and have them pass a great bill that would help Trump. It was about blocking the deep state from doing anything. That's what this was about. That's why the Senate was so important. And all the investigations moved from the House to the Senate. The Senate controls everything. Plus, they wanted to insulate Trump, which they have done. Military planning at its finest. Now, here's another piece to the puzzle, to the plan, which needed to happen way before we started to bring individuals in and started to arrest them. Trump nominated 51 judges at once, enough to fill 1/3 of all court vacancies. Think about what he just did here. The list showed 37 nominees to district courts, 9 to circuit courts, 2 each to the International Trade and Federal Claims Courts, and 1 to the Military Commission Review. The president is already on a historic pace to change the courts and fill vacancies with the conservative picks. According to one tally, he has put 30 judges on the United States Courts of Appeals and 53 judges for the United States District Courts. He has also filled 2 Supreme Court vacancies. Should the Senate move quickly to approve his picks, as it has done before, the 51 picks would fill 1/3 of the 146 vacancies. Think about what he's just done right now. Again, another piece to the plan. Now, I see a lot of articles coming out of the mainstream media where they're saying, ooh, the Q followers Trump's base, they're very upset with him because he caved on the wall. He didn't cave on the wall. This is mainstream media propaganda. Q followers, Trump followers, they know exactly what he's doing. They know the plan. And Trump tweeted out the following: "After all that I have done for the military, our great veterans, judges 99, justices 2, tax and regulation cuts, the economy, energy, trade, and much, much more, does anyone really think I won't build the wall? Done more in first 2 years than any president. Make America great again." Just because you don't see it happening, just because it's not the way you think it's happening, remember, get rid of all expectations. Start to think like Trump thinks. Think about, how do you get around the obstacles? How do you make the deep state, the Dems, look bad and work in your favor? Think about using contingency plans to get around what the mainstream media is doing and make the mainstream media look like idiots. This is how Trump works. What you're seeing is never really what is happening. Haven't we seen this in the past before? Everyone told us that he was going to be invading North Korea. McMaster's told us what? 100,000 troops. If we bring them in, we can destroy them. Think about Syria. Everyone thought, we're going into Syria, nothing's changed. Think about all of this. What we see and what the mainstream media and what everyone else, all these trolls, are telling you, it's the opposite. Now, Pelosi has invited Trump to the State of the Union on February 5th. I wonder if Trump's going to accept. Most likely, yes. And he's going to have his security in place. Now, I wanted to go out to France for a sec because we know the Yellow Vests, they have been protesting. It's the 11th straight week right now, and they're protesting against the French government. Macron, he didn't know what to do, so guess what he did? He bussed in paid individuals and called them the Red Scarves to counter the Yellow Vests. So he has a paid group which is trying to counter a grassroots movement. Will not work. Sorry, Macron. Dead end. And these individuals, like we've seen in the past, this is what the deep state does. They pay individuals, they bust them in, and will they just do peaceful protests? No. Actually, they're going to create chaos. That's what they're going to try to do. That's what Macron has been trying to do. But again, it's a dead end. Let's go out to Venezuela, because we're starting to see the same thing, the same strategy being used in Venezuela that we saw in North Korea, Syria, and we're taking bits and pieces from what Trump is doing right now. Now, right off the bat, we see Debbie Wasserman Schultz out there, and she is creating a dream team of Democrats to fix the democracy in Venezuela. She's jumped on the bandwagon here. We have Marco Rubio jumping on the bandwagon, and he's tweeting out like crazy, trying to push this agenda. Now, Mike Mulvaney was out there, and he said the president wouldn't be doing his job if he ruled out attacking Venezuela. Now, I do believe that they must have heard chatter in the background that the deep state was trying to do something in Venezuela, and Trump, the Patriots, they headed them off and decided to push their plan to stop whatever they were going to try, just like he did with North Korea. And once again, we see who out in the front talking to the people? John Bolton. Telling the neocons, the mainstream media, exactly what they wanted to hear. Remember, these individuals are put into place for a specific reason. I mean, remember Bolton out there telling us that the U.S. is never going to leave Syria unless Iran leaves first? Was he right? No, he was wrong. Trump is using Bolton just like he used McMaster's. McMaster's was out there with North Korea telling us all these different things, everything the mainstream media wanted to hear, everything that the deep state wanted to hear, and then McMaster's was gone, and there was peace in North Korea. We had Mattis, who was telling us that we're not going to be leaving Syria. We're going to be staying in Syria. Well, Mattis was also used, and then Mattis was gotten rid of. This is almost like what Q said in Post 2654. This is the Scaramucci model. Public opinion optics do not matter. Temps can be very dangerous to those who are targeted. And yes, Bolton is a temp. Mattis was a temp. McMaster's is a temp. They're all temps. What he's doing, he's using certain individuals to carry out what he wants the deep state, the mainstream media, to believe at a specific time. Let's think logically about this. Do you really think that Trump really has invading Venezuela on the table? Do you really think he's going to do that after he's pulling the troops out of Syria, after he had peace with North Korea and Kim Jong-un trusts him? We have peace delegates in Afghanistan, and they're getting very, very close to coming up with a peace deal. I mean, right now they have been speaking for 6 days in a row, and it looks like they're very, very close to a deal, and it looks like there's going to be troops coming out of Afghanistan. So why would Trump create a war in Venezuela? It makes no sense. No, this is all part of the show. This is giving the deep state, the mainstream media, the neocons, what they always wanted. Now, is it going to go the way they wanted? That they thought it was going to go? What they expect? No. Think about it. He gave the deep state what they wanted and the mainstream media what they wanted when he fired the missiles into Syria. Was that to go after Assad? Was that to split up Syria? Absolutely not. It was to destroy the deep state infrastructure. It was to bring the U.S. soldiers home from Syria and end these ridiculous wars that the deep state started. That's what this was all about. So what you're hearing and what you hear other people are saying, it is the opposite. Now, we know that Trump was invited to the State of the Union on February 5th. And we know that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she has been missing for a very long time. I wonder why we haven't heard anything about her health, how she's doing. We've heard zero. Do you think RBG will be showing up at the State of the Union? Well, the clock is ticking. Well, we know that the deep state, they are panicking like there's no tomorrow. We see that a former senior level Obama administration official keeps trolling Trump with alarming rhetoric. Who is this? John Brennan. Here's his most recent troll. Your cabal of unprincipled, unethical, dishonest, sycophantic cronies is being methodically brought to justice. Think mirror. Your cabal of unprincipled, unethical, dishonest, sycophantic cronies is being methodically brought to justice. What is Trump and the Patriots doing right now? He is slowly bringing each one to justice. Brennan is panicking like crazy right now. Remember, Trump took away his security clearance. And this brings him back to all those people that Mueller arrested for lying. And Trump just pretty much summed it up on where this plan is going. If Roger Stone was indicted for lying to Congress, what about the lying done by James Comey, Brennan, Clapper, Lisa Page, and Lover, Baker, and so many others? Said Trump. Think about what is happening here. Trump, the Patriots, they're setting them up. They don't even know it. They're being set up. The mainstream media is being set up. What are they going to do? Turn around and say, oh, no, you can't arrest someone for lying now. They already made the case. they're digging their hole. David Loffman was trolling Trump. And remember, Loffman resigned. Remember, he helped supervise the controversial probe into Hillary Clinton's use of her private email server, as well as Russian interference in the 2016 election. He decided to leave. But he said the notion that the President of the United States would be trying to conceal the details of conversation with the leader of our principal foreign adversary was positively chilling. So what's happening here is they're projecting out there that Trump is hiding something. What he was talking about with Putin, they don't have the notes. He's projecting out there because who was dealing with the Russians? Who's hiding information from the public? Remember the Uranium One deal? The Clinton server, the spying, and everything else? They're the ones who are in hot water. They are projecting right now. They're panicking. And this is why they're continually coming out. It's almost like they're cursing at Trump, especially Brennan. When someone gets very emotional like this, when someone gets that pissed off, that means they're nervous and afraid. And that's what we're seeing right now. We are getting closer. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.